Fifth grade Go Math, Chapter 3, Lesson 7. How can you estimate decimal sums and differences? We need to remember that sums means addition problems and differences means subtraction problems. Unlock the problem. A singer is recording a CD. The lengths of the 3 songs are 3 4/10 minutes, 2 78 minutes, and 4 19 minutes. About how much recording time will there be on the CD? First, you need to squiggle underline what you're being asked to find. Locate the question mark in this case. Circle the important numbers and then underline any keywords that can give you clues to what operation you need to be doing. You should have squiggle underlined the last sentence about how much recording time will be on the CD, circled the length of the 3 songs, and then underlined the word about to tell us that they don't want the actual, they just want something that's close or an estimate. And then will be on I underline because that's telling me I'm putting them all together, so I am adding. The first thing to do is to write down the numbers that you have. And this is the actual numbers. And now we need to round to the nearest whole number, so that's the ones place. A strategy to help you remember what to do is to circle the digit in the place value that needs to be rounded. So that's the 3 in the ones place. Underline the digit to the right. Now, if the digit to the right is less than 5, your circled number stays the same. If your underlined digit is 5 or greater, then your circled digit is going to increase by 1. And that's what this box over here tells you. So 4 is less than 5, so that's how they got the 3 here. It stayed the same. The next number, in the ones place we have a 2, so we're underlining the 7. Is 7 less than 5 or greater than 5? It's greater than 5, so our 2 needs to increase by 1, which is 3. And our last one, in the ones place is the 4. Underline the digit to the right. 1, is it less than 5 or greater than 5? It is less than 5, so our 4 is going to stay the same. Now that we have them all rounded, we need to just add them together. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10. So there will be about 10 minutes of recording time on the CD. Looking down at the try this. We're still using rounding today. A says round to the nearest whole dollar, then subtract. When it says whole dollar or whole number, they want you to remove the decimals. So in the ones place, we're going to circle our 7, underline our 9. Is the 9 less than or greater than 5? It is greater than 5. So that's going to make our circled number, the 7, increase by 1, but the 2 in the tens place stays the same. So 2, and then the 7 becomes an 8. In our next number, we again circle the digit in the ones place, underline the digit to the right. That is a 7. Is that less than or greater than 5? 7 is greater than, so our 1 is going to increase by 1, but the 10 stays the same, so it's 1 and then 2, so it's 12. And now that we have all of our numbers rounded, we subtract. 8 minus 2 is 6, and 2 minus 1 is 1. So to the nearest dollar, our equation comes out to $16, and don't forget your dollar sign. Part B is similar. We're using the same numbers, except for this time, we're being asked to round to the nearest $10. Important. And then we subtract. So now we need to underline the digit in the tens place or circle the digit in the tens place, then underline the digit to the right, that's a 7. And is the 7 less than or greater than 5? It's greater than, so our 2 is going to increase by 1, becoming a 3. And then everything else turns to a 0, and we've lost our decimals. That's okay. And for our next number, we have 1 in the tens place, and we underline the 1 in the ones place. 1 is less than 5, so this 1 is going to stay the same. So that's a 1, and then the others turn to zeros, and then we subtract. 30 minus 10 is 20. So to the nearest $10, it is about $20. And you can see that if we rounded $16 to the nearest $10, it would be 20. Do you want to overestimate, or that means basically to round up, or an underestimate, where you've rounded down, when you estimate the total cost of items you want to buy? Say you have a limit. Do you want to round up all of the money or prices, or do you want to round down when you are trying to figure out if you have enough? I use an overestimate to make sure I have enough money. And then this is an example. If something costs $2.60 and $2.45, the actual is going to be $5.05. But if I only have $5, that extra 5 cents makes a difference. So if I had rounded down, I would have rounded to $4 thinking I had enough. But if I rounded up, it'd say $6 and I'd be like, whoop, I don't have that much money, I can't buy that. Another way to form an estimate is to use benchmark numbers. Those are familiar numbers used as points of reference. And you can use benchmarks of 0, 25 hundredths, 50 hundredths, 75 hundredths, and 1 to estimate decimal sums and differences. I like to think about those as like 25 cents because I know that it takes 4 quarters to make $1, and I can easily add that up in my head. And so we're going to use benchmarks to estimate 18 hundredths and 43 hundredths. First, we're going to locate and graph a point on the number line for each decimal. So 18 hundredths, each tick mark is worth 5. So this would be 5 hundredths, 10 hundredths, 15 hundredths, 20 hundredths. 18 is right in the middle. But it's closer to which benchmark, 0 or 25 hundredths? It is closer to 25 hundredths. Okay, so now let's think about 43 hundredths. Well, it's before 50 and after 25, so this would be 30 hundredths, 35 hundredths, 40 hundredths, 45 hundredths. So it's right between those two. That's where 43 hundredths is. So we're going to go between 25 hundredths and 50 hundredths. But which one is it closest to? We can visually see that it is closer to 50 hundredths. So now we're going to take our benchmarks that we've located and we're going to write them down. 18 hundredths was closer to 25 hundredths, while 43 hundredths was closer to 50 hundredths. Adding those together, that is 75 hundredths. So 18 hundredths plus 43 hundredths is about 75 hundredths. Again, I think benchmark numbers, I think of 25 cents and adding quarters. So let's look at example 2. This time it's subtraction, but it's the same idea. 76 hundredths is closest to which benchmark number? We start by determining which ones it's between. Well, 76 is greater than 75, so it's between 75 hundredths, and the next benchmark is 1, but 76 is just past 75. So benchmark-wise, it is closer to 75 hundredths. And now 22 hundredths, that is between 0 and 25 hundredths, but if we count by each tick mark by 5, 22 hundredths is going to be right here, which it's closer to 25 hundredths. Now we're going to just rewrite those as the benchmarks. 75 hundredths minus 25 hundredths. 75 cents minus 25 cents. I know that to be 50 hundredths. So 76 hundredths minus 22 hundredths is about 50 hundredths. So on your homework, if it asks for benchmarks, it's asking you to use the 0, 25 hundredths, 50 hundredths, 75 hundredths, or a 1. It's not asking you to round, because that moves us into the math talk right here. If we rounded 76 hundredths, that instead of using the benchmark, that would be 80 hundredths minus 22 hundredths. Instead of going 25, it would round down to 20 hundredths, and you would end up with an answer of 60 hundredths instead of 50 hundredths. So make sure you pay attention to the directions on whether it's asking you to round or to use the benchmark numbers. This is the Sharon Show. Read the directions on what they want you to use for your estimate. For your first ones, I want number 1 to go to the nearest whole number. I want number 2 to go to the nearest tenth. And number 3 to go to the nearest whole dollar. Press pause while you work on your Sharon Show. I hope you paid attention to your operations. Number 1 should be 9. Number 2, it is subtraction, and make sure you line up your decimals. To the nearest dollar tells us to use the ones column. So 1975, the 7 tells us to round up, so that's going to $20. And then on the 3, the 9 tells us to go up to $4, and it is addition, so my estimate is $24, and make sure you have your dollar sign. Numbers 4 and 5, you were to use your benchmarks, so like your quarters. Number 4, it's okay if your benchmark is 0. So if you add those together, your estimate should end up being 50 hundredths. Number 5, I hope you paid attention and saw it was subtraction and that you kept your decimals in line. Bring your decimal down and do your subtraction. 6 and 25 hundredths. You now know how to use estimates to find sums and differences in decimals. Right here, explain the difference between an estimate and an exact. An estimate is going to require you to either use benchmarks or round.